Okay, we are back. Part 2. Now I've got a telephone holder here that a wonderful, beautiful person in Cleveland sent me, or didn't send me. She brought it to my show in. How did we do this? Oh, okay. In Cleveland, and she says, "I see you have trouble holding your phone," and so she gave me this thing here, and I'm trying to get it a little. Let's see here, holding it up in Quinn's thing. Well, let's hang on. I'm gonna pull. Oh, I'm gonna do that. Okay, we're having technical difficulties today. Quinn and I are going to do something from the Chicken Kabbalah. Okay, and I'll just start right there. We're going to do the Qabalistic Autopsy. Now, if I have the book around here someplace.
There you go.
Now, Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, as a matter of fact, maybe I can even talk about this here. Okay. In the spring of 1991, Rabbi Ben Clifford became obsessed with the idea of making a Kabbalistic documentary. He approached several Southern California filmmakers who predictably gave him no encouragement whatsoever. Undaunted, he began in earnest to write the script. He was absolutely convinced that, quote, this is what he said, "Once the Qliphothic demons of media see the Asiya manifestation of my Bria-esque genius, they will immediately recognize its pure Atziluthness and transform themselves into angels of Yetzirah and demand to be part of its full manifestation in Asiya." The documentary, of course, was never made. Although the rabbi claimed to have finished writing the entire text, no finished manuscript has ever been discovered. Oh, we've got another telephone call coming in.
Not important, though.
Okay. The largest and most complete remnant of the script remains in the possession of Dr. I.Z. Guilford, Ben Clifford's veterinarian, who found it in the lining the floor of the rabbi's rooftop pigeon coop. Okay, we're only going to read part 2, the Qabalistic Autopsy. Now, let's see. And Quinn is going to help us, and he'll be read all the stage directions of the Qabalistic Autopsy. But first of all, let's see if we can show something here that you're going to see it backwards, like all of our things that we show from our parking lot shows. We got a obelisk, like right there, that shows the 4 Kabbalistic worlds. Atzilith up at the top, Bria, second one down, Yetzirah, and then Asiya. Okay, but we have our own miniature working model of that inside each of us, and that's the parts of our soul. And this is what this part of the documentary was meant to talk about: the 4 parts of the soul, the Chai, or the life force, the Neshama, the soul intuition, the Ruach, our intellect, and finally the Nephesh, our animal soul. Those are the personal reflections of the four Kabbalistic worlds. So if the narrator would start.
Scene 1, location, operating room of morgue, rabbi's body on table, music, organ hymn, Abide With Me.
Can you hear Abide With Me going, the funeral song? Abide with me. Okay. Rabbi in voiceover says, "Then shall the dust return to earth as it was, and the spirit return unto God who gave it."
Music stops as Rabbi narrates. Camera slowly pans his body from toe to head. For modesty's sake, his genitalia area and the genital areas of his tattoos are marked off with black tape.
I really look natural, don't I? This is the dissection room of the Kabbalistic morgue, and I have volunteered my body for a little demonstration of the four parts of the soul. Because humans are made in the image of deity, we reflect the same dynamics as our huge and eternal counterpart. Each of us is a four-story Yod-He Vav-He with our own little Atzilith, Braya, Yetzirah, and Asaya right here inside us. Four parts of our soul which Kabbalists refer to, starting at the top, Chai, Neshama, Ruach, and Nepish. Like the Kabbalistic worlds, the three lower parts of the soul are just the distorted image of our real identity, Chai, the life force itself. The lowest part, which corresponds to Asaya, the material world, is called the Nepish, animal vitality, or the animal soul. The physical body is not really the Nepish, but the veil of the Nepish. I call it Nepish crust. As science advances and we learn more and more about the neural, electrical, magnetic nature of the body, it gets harder to determine where the crust leaves off and the Nepish begins. Let's just say, for starters, that the Nepish is that primitive level of consciousness that we share with the animal kingdom. Our instincts, our primitive appetites, emotions, and sex drive, our survival mechanisms. We can observe the Nepish manifest most clearly in the individuals who, because of unfortunate circumstances, are deprived of the proper function of the rational mind. We can also spot it in ourselves, in moments of blind rage, or when we're so frightened of a fire we jump out of the window of a 16-story building, or when we get so horny that we forget this fling is going to ruin our lives. Wild and dangerous as the Nepish can be, it makes each of us complete, an accurate reflection of the greater spiritual reality. It's where we live. It's our personal Asaya. And every angel in the celestial realms would give its right wing to own one.
Morgue doctor in surgical clothes moves into the picture. She takes the scalpel from the instrument tray and moves towards the rabbi's head. Camera zooms in on the neck area as the scalpel blade nears the throat. Camera moves away from before any incision is made.
We don't want to shock anybody. The part of the soul that corresponds to Yetzirah, the formative world, is called the Ruach, the intellect. Just as the physical body is the crust of the Nepish forms the crust of the Ruach.
Scene 2, location, medical library complete with Bunsen burners and glass tubing and electric instruments. Special effects. Rabbi's severed head is sitting up on its neck, facing the camera. It is resting in a shallow laboratory pan, half filled with liquid. Several tubes lead from the liquid to bubbling beakers. Rabbi's head opens its eyes and now becomes the narrator.
The rabbi's head speaks. Don't try this at home. This is just a cheap trick to introduce us to the next part of the soul, the Ruach. Above the Nepish, corresponding to the world of Yetzirah and the Vav of Tetragrammaton, is the Ruach, the intellect, and the vehicle of self-awareness. Now, obviously, my physical head and brain are not the real Ruach because all organic things are too gross to qualify for Ruachhood. But as you look at my head here in this laboratory pan, I want you to think. If your feet and legs were amputated, you'd still be you, right? And if your arms were amputated, wouldn't you still consider yourself you? Provided science could keep you alive, how much of your body could be amputated or removed before you lose your you-ness? You might answer that you'd still be you as long as you can think and maintain consciousness of yourself. But that's the big Ruach lie. Thinking and consciousness is not the same thing at all. The Ruach part of your soul monopolizes your attention to such a degree that you identify completely with the thinking process. Descartes fell for this hook, line, and sinker when he said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Ultimately, the real you doesn't need the think part of you at all. Doesn't need the think part of the equation to maintain consciousness. Even if you could no longer think, there would still be you, and there would still be consciousness. The Ruach part of your soul, however, is incapable of grasping that subtle fact. It is unable to transcend itself to imagine a self without thinking. Like a narcissistic, domineering mother, Ruach consumes your full attention, causing you to think about life rather than live it, seek understanding rather than enlightenment, comprehension rather than bliss.
Morgue doctor moves into the picture. She picks up a power drill. Camera zooms in on Rabbi's head as the doctor places the drill tip directly to his forehead at the area of the third eye. Camera moves away before the drilling begins. The rabbi's head continues his narration over the sound of the drilling.
The part of the soul that corresponds to Braya, the creative world, and the Hay of the Tetragrammaton, is called the Neshama, the seat of our transcendent awareness. Just as the physical body is the crust of the Nepish, and the Nepish forms the crust of the Ruach forms the crust of the Neshama.
Special effects. The camera enters the darkness of the neatly drilled hole in the rabbi's forehead.
Practitioners of ceremonial magic often argue with each other over the question, are angels, demons, spirits, and other phenomena objective or subjective realities? Do they exist outside of us, or are they just in our heads? The answer is simple. The spirits and every other denizen of objective reality are all in your head, only you have no idea how infinitely huge your head is.
Scene 3. Interior Rabbi's head. A cozy den with a modest fireplace, before which we find a golden retriever asleep on a braided rug, and the rabbi reclined in an easy chair. He is calmly smoking a pipe. His eyes are closed, but the brow of his forehead is furrowed as if he is in profound thought or mystical reverie. He never opens his eyes, but continues his narration in voiceover.
The neshama, the Thomas Edison archangel part of your soul, is the soul intuition. It is our transcendent awareness, that part of us that rises above the thinking process and vibrates in greater harmony with the ultimate reality. We really can't understand the neshama because the machinery of our thoughts is based in ruach and can only take in so much information before going into overload and breaking down. For our illustration here, we view my neshama as being centered inside my physical skull. It may or may not be centered there, but there's one thing for certain. The neshama part of our soul reaches infinitely farther than the confines of our physical body. As a matter of fact, for all intent and purposes, the scope of the neshama is infinite. It is in touch with the energies and levels of consciousness our ruach would not understand even if it could conceive of them. We've all heard stories of mothers separated from their children by hundreds of miles or thousands of miles, knowing instinctively when their young ones are in danger. This is because at the traumatic moment the child emits is this because at the traumatic moment the child emits some kind of signal that's telegraphed upon the ocean to the mother? No. It's because the mother's neshama is so huge the child can never escape it, no matter how many miles separate their physical bodies. A mother's intuition is only a very primitive example of this transcendent awareness. It's clear to me that if it were possible to understand the scope and potential of the human neshama, we would solve many of the mysteries surrounding so-called supernatural events of religious traditions and the unanswered questions of modern psychic research. The highest part of the soul that corresponds to Atzilith, the archetypal world in the yod of the Tetragrammaton, is called the Chai, spelled C-H-I-A, like lechaim, to life. Okay, it is the undiluted life force itself and is our true identity. All other parts of the soul are veils of the Chai. Just as the physical body is the crust of the Nephesh, and the Nephesh forms the crust of the Ruach, and the Ruach forms the crust of the Neshama forms the crust of the Chai. We found the Neshama hard to talk to. Our Chai. I think we're still on.
We're on.
I think we're still on.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay. Are we at the special effects?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Special effects. The camera backs up to reveal that the entire scene of the interior of the rabbi's head is only an image on a television screen. A hand holding a remote sticker comes into view. The hand aims the clicker at the TV and pushes a button. The television screen changes to the blank and snowy image found in between channels. Over the white noise of the blank screen, the rabbi continues his voice-over narration.
We've all seen this snowy image and heard this irritating hiss whenever we turn a television channel that isn't carrying a broadcast signal. Astronomers now tell us that what we are seeing and hearing is nothing more or less than the radiation echo of the Big Bang itself, which emanates hauntingly from the empty space between the stars. There is no empty space between but anyway, if we personified this unimaginable energy as God, it would dwarf to insignificance all the lesser forces and beings in the celestial family, since the nature of the Chai, when compared to the other parts of the soul, Yod-He Vav-He, Atzaleth, Braya, Yetzirah, Asaya, Chai, Neshama, Ruach, Nepish. The Nepish lives, but is not self-aware. The Ruach is self-aware, and aware the self is living. The Neshama is the essence of life's awareness, but the Chai is life itself, the soul's true identity. If there is any purpose for our incarnation, it is to perfectly integrate the 4 parts of our soul so that we can function as perfect units of the Supreme Consciousness and uninhibitedly manifest that consciousness on all planes of existence.
Special effects. The hand holding a remote clicker comes again into view. The hand aims the clicker at the television and pushes a button. The television goes dark except for the tiny white dot in the center of the screen. White dot slowly fades to black. The end.
Thank you, Quinn. And that was the Qabalistic Autopsy, or the last part of it anyway. And here is another one of those obelisks. Where are we here? There's another one of those obelisks that shows the 4 parts of the soul. At the top, the Chai, the Neshama, the Ruach, and the Nepish. Anyway, the book is The Chicken Kabbalah of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. They look good in your library 6 at a time. They just look very handsome just together like that, because you never know when friends may stop by and you just like to give them one. Anyway, it's been quite a morning. We've had one false start, so you got the Constant show right before this, and then you've got the Qabalistic Autopsy for part 2. Now I got to answer this other telephone call. Yes, I have to take care of that. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Love is the law, love unto will.
See you tomorrow.